Blackburn, the Director of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Division at NCDOT.
Good morning. This is Lauren Blackburn with NCDOT. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar today. We're pleased to announce the beginning of a planning process that will result in an innovative, state-of-the-art and state-of-the-practice pedestrian and bicycle master plan. Our goal is to create the best statewide plan for North Carolina in the country and, as a result, create the most walkable and bikeable state. To make that happen, we need your support and input throughout the process. Today, Chuck Flink of Alta Planning and Design, the lead consultant for this planning effort, will deliver a presentation about the planning process that will take place over the next several months.
Lauren, thank you, and good morning to everyone. It is a beautiful day in North Carolina for August, amazing temperatures. Hopefully later today you guys will be able to get out and take a bike ride or walk and enjoy our beautiful state. I'm going to walk you through a presentation this morning to give you some background on how this project came to be, what some of the important philosophical underpinnings of the project are, and our scope of work and how we're going to execute that. I'd like to start by first addressing NCDOT's mission statement, because this is a very important point of departure for this planning project and process. Up until April of this year, NCDOT had a mission statement that read, "Connecting people and places safely and efficiently with accountability and environmental sensitivity." At its April board meeting, NCDOT went ahead and made changes, very important changes, to that mission statement, adding the words "to enhance the economy, the health, and well-being of North Carolina." And it's those three words, economy, health, and well-being, that are very important to this master planning process, as you'll see from the presentation as we go forward. When we think about walking and biking in North Carolina, I imagine a lot of people probably don't think initially of these three words, but they become really the hallmark and the centerpiece for this planning effort as we go forward. And I'll say that NCDOT does not view this opportunity in a very conventional sense. I think if you look at statewide bike and ped plans across the United States, they've tended to focus on policy and facilities, design guidelines, ways in which the state would execute more or less a facility-driven program. NCDOT decided early on, and I want to give the credit where the credit's due to Paul Morris and Secretary Conti and the Bike and Ped program, to really enlist a number of different partners in this effort, which are represented in this slide in the logos that are present. NCDOT views itself as the champion and the facilitator for this planning process, but definitely wanted to involve a lot of other people in the discussion, including the Department of Health and Human Services, DENR, the Department of Commerce, and other private sector groups like Blue Cross Blue Shield and other private donors that are involved in funding this effort. And in that way, we're really reaching out, involving and inviting a lot of different interests to participate in this planning process, and looking for that input as we formulate a plan for the future. We're fortunate in our state to have one of the oldest state-run bicycle and pedestrian programs in the nation. And it's a program that's had a lot of success. And the intent here is not to rest on our laurels and the accomplishments that we've had, but to look to the future, to look to North Carolina's future. We've been a state that has seen a lot of changes since the bicycle program was established in the 1970s, and we believe going forward, the next 30 years in particular, that there's a lot of changes ahead. So we want to open this conversation up statewide. We want to invite people to have input into the process, and that's really the primary purpose of this webinar today. DOT has also constructed two committees that are going to be involved more on the policy and development level of this plan over the next 6 months. The first is an advisory committee, which is composed of the following members: And the principal role of this advisory committee is to meet on a regular basis, look at the overall funding and prioritization, design, and the construction of infrastructure, and also address those issues of implementation and accountability as we go through the planning process. There's also a steering committee, which is comprised of a different group of people, and they'll actually meet with us on a more regular basis, looking at the way in which this plan is integrated into the policies and programs of NCDOT, as well as how it relates to other state agencies. And we'll be looking at issues involving innovation and efficiency, and how we measure the success of this program as it gets implemented over time. Now, we're in the process of also enlisting a lot of other partners in this effort. We want you to know that we've got the full support of the Board of Transportation. They are very excited about this effort and looking forward to their participation as well. We have a lot of different funding partners on this project, offering either in-kind services or funding to help pay for the consultant services that are involved in the project. And the Bike and Ped Division is very much involved. All of the staff with the Bike and Ped Division are engaged on this on a daily basis. And then we have a consulting team, which Alta Planning is the lead for. When I first learned about this project and talking with DOT at the beginning of this year, it was my goal to reach out to some of the best and the brightest in the nation and put together a team that would be the A-list team that could deliver on DOT's goal for making this a national model for how bike and ped plans are put together across the United States. And we feel like we've accomplished that. We have an outstanding team of resource people that will be working on this. We're very fortunate as well to have a national peer review team, which includes the likes of Andy Clark and Mark Fenton, Sig Hutchinson, who's actually here in Raleigh, Dr. Rich Killingsworth out of Washington, D.C., Dr. Richard Jackson out of UCLA, and so on and so forth. And this national peer review team is very excited about this work and looking forward to being engaged in the planning process. Now, our scope of work and timeline is quite compressed, and we know that we're going to be very challenged to meet all of what's being required. But the good news is we're underway, and we're getting a lot of our work done. It is our hope to generate a draft plan, more or less a framework plan, by November of this year, and then to use the remainder of our process all the way until next May of 2013, to conclude the planning process and deliver a plan to NCDOT that meets all the goals and objectives that we've outlined here today. So that gives you a quick overview of sort of the vision, the mission, the timeline, and the team that's working on this. And now what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time talking about the scope of work and how we propose to accomplish that work program and what this means to all of you who are all across the state of North Carolina and ways in which you can continue to be involved in the planning process. First and foremost, we believe that public involvement is a key to this project and to developing a model plan. And we've developed a very broad sort of program for public involvement. You're going to be able to, pick and choose where you want to attend events that discuss this in more detail, or if you just choose to participate through interactions like this, we have constructed a website for you to do that. But there's going to be a lot of public involvement over the next 4 to 6 months. Lots of opportunity for people to be involved. We've constructed a website called walkbikeNC.com, and on that website you can go in and we want you to sign up to begin with, and you can see an introductory video that's been put together by Paul Morris and NCDOT that talks about this project and the way it's going to be implemented. And then there's going to be information posted about where we're going to be holding meetings and how you can continue to be involved. This is going to be one of the primary portals for people to have interaction and involvement with the planning process and to keep connected with all the different aspects of the plan. So we encourage you to put this into your web browser visit this site as soon as possible and get connected with the planning process. Now, we're going to be doing quite a bit of focus group meetings and holding public workshops across North Carolina. It is our hope to attend a lot of very significant events that will be going on the next 90 days across North Carolina. In some cases, these events are going to be attended by tens of thousands of North Carolinians. And it's our goal to have a physical presence there, to share information about this project and connect people to our website, and also take public input at these meetings. We'll be holding traditional sort of stakeholder workshops as well, and all of this information in terms of the dates and the times and the locations for where we'll be holding these meetings or attending these events will be published or is published on walkbikenc.com. So if you want to be connected into when these events are going to be taking place, please go to the website and see where those are going to take place. We're going to be doing this so that we involve every region of our state. We're going to be having teams of people from the consultant side and from the Bike Ped Division out across the state of North Carolina during the next 90 days, attending a variety of events and conducting these public workshops. So there will be a chance for people to participate in person at these events and meetings. We've already produced a number of different public information panels and brochures that we'll be distributing at these meetings and events, and these are intended to provide people with sort of quick snapshots of the major sort of elements of focus of the planning process, and direct people to some of the subject matter that we'll be dealing with throughout. So, as I said, public involvement is important, and we look forward to having your continued involvement as we go throughout the planning process over the next 4 to 6 months, especially. Now, the plan is got a lot of different components to it. It's going to be a very thorough plan. We're not just about facilities. We're looking at policies and programs. We're looking at economic development and health. And I'm going to walk you through each of the plan components here just briefly to talk about some of the highlights of each of those. The first thing that we've been doing is collecting a lot of existing data and information about walking and bicycling in North Carolina. So there's a lot of information out there. In some ways, our state, there's really good opportunities for these activities throughout our state. And in other places, as you all know, there's a lot of barriers and obstacles to overcome. So we're doing this from every angle possible, whether that's a physical inventory of walking and biking, or whether that's looking at policies and programs that either serve to promote or inhibit those activities. We're also doing a national research on the benefits of walking and bicycling so that we have the best in the terms of arguments and statistics that support the efforts of this plan. So that is all ongoing right now. We're also going to be looking at North Carolina's bike route system, which has been in place for over 40 years. We think that it's a system that needs to be modernized. It's also a system that needs to tie in with a lot of facilities that have been developed since this system was first put in place many years ago. So we're evaluating that system, and we're working within the new published AASHTO guides, as well as the more recently modern announced U.S. bike route system to update that North Carolina bike route system as we go through. And we're doing this in conjunction with North Carolina's emerging regional and state greenway system. This is a system that's been planned, especially over the last 10 years, by COGS and MPOs and counties and cities across North Carolina. And it's an effort that involves sort of knitting together different regional and local greenways and trails, whether that's the Mountains to Sea Trail or the East Coast Greenway or the Carolina Thread Trail, in a way that begins to develop a framework of statewide greenways and trails. And we're coupling that with an examination of important areas of North Carolina that have been conserved, whether that's for state parks or natural heritage areas, or even private preserves that have been set up across our state. So I know it's a little bit unusual for NCDOT to be perhaps talking about conservation, but it's not unusual in the context of this plan. And we're reaching out to the Division of State Parks and DENR as a whole and looking at ways in which we can coordinate conservation programs and objectives with this bicycle and pedestrian master plan. To do this, we're collecting a lot of data, and this is where we could really use everyone's help. We're reaching out and trying to gather as much GIS data as we possibly can. It's a big task. We're going to get as much accomplished as we can within the time frame of our work program, but this is a task that will be ongoing for many years to come. So it's our hope to establish a really good quality set of base data that we can use for planning and decision making as we go forward with building walking and bicycling facilities across the state. Now, safety is a really important aspect of this work, and I know that when Paul Morris was beginning to launch this vision, that he spent time talking with the General Assembly and really highlighting the benefits of bicycle and pedestrian planning and implementation from the standpoint of safety. So we are working to obtain some of the most up-to-date information that we can across our state with regards to how to make walking and bicycling safer by looking at trends and key statistics across our state. And we're looking forward to incorporating a lot of up-to-date information about that as we go throughout the planning process. We're also looking at programs, so we don't want you to feel like this is just about facilities. This is not about building trails or putting more bike lanes in or building more sidewalks. This is also about the programs that get implemented across our state, whether that's safe routes to school or ways in which we reach out to bicycle and pedestrian advocacy groups or working with our partners in health and economic development. So programs are going to be a very important part of this planning effort as we go throughout. We already have a lot of really great programs in North Carolina, whether they be at the local level or statewide. So we'll be building on a solid foundation. But we want to continue to strengthen those programs, especially in the areas of outreach and education to our citizens, so that we make walking and bicycling more a part of daily life than it is today. And you know, some of that starts with policy. We know that the foundation of a lot of programs and facilities starts with policy, and I can tell you I've already had some really good meetings here with the Bike and Ped Division staff. We're going over all the statewide policies that support bicycle and pedestrian implementation, but we're also looking at where we have barriers and where we have inconsistent policies, perhaps, that need to be worked through and sort of clarified. So we're doing a very in-depth analysis of policy as we go through. Now, a lot of you are familiar with the Complete Streets program that's been launched by NCDOT. We're going to build on the success of that program. We're going to look at the conclusions of that work and see where we go from what's already been established in terms of walking and bicycling and ways in which we can strengthen that program. I met yesterday with the Department of Commerce, and we're also looking at the Main Street program and ways that can be strengthened through the work of this planning effort. Some of that is just simply through modernizing our design guidelines, which we will be doing with this planning effort. We'll be incorporating the new AASHTO guide, the revised MUTCD, as well as the NACTO guide, which is the sort of the urban bicycle design guidelines that have come out for the United States. So we're looking at coming up with a forward-looking set of design guidelines that will guide us, you know, for the next 30 years in terms of how we do facility development and how that impacts, you know, programs and policies. We're very fortunate to have such a great team assembled for this effort, and we're going to be using the resources of our team to look at all aspects of walking and bicycling, including a really detailed examination of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which, as you guys know, is civil rights legislation, and we need to know how to best incorporate and accommodate all aspects of ADA within our design standards as well as within our programs and policies. And I just like to say, you know, we think of a disability very broadly. We not only think of people that might have permanent disabilities, whether it be sight, mobility, or hearing loss, but we also think about temporary disabilities, people with bags of groceries or people with a whole bunch of kids as they're trying to lead down a sidewalk and into a street. So, you know, we take this issue of disabilities very seriously, and we want our plan and our programs to address those policies and actions. Also, you know, we believe that transit is an important future transportation endeavor of our state, and we're going to be looking at our current transit programs and our plans and vision for an enhanced transit system across North Carolina and ways in which walking and bicycling links to that to create more efficient modes of transportation. So that's a very important part of our work program as well. And we're very fortunate to have financial support from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina and the support of the Department of Health and Human Services. There will be a rapid health impact assessment, an HIA, that will be performed during the planning process, and health and the impacts on health and the benefits to a healthy population will be something that we're going to be devoting a lot of time and effort to. We think this is a great future opportunity for the funding of bicycle and pedestrian facilities across our state. So this is going to be one of the major focuses of our work, and we're very fortunate to have that funding and also to have Active Living by Design and the University of North Carolina on our team to help us author the components of that plan. And maybe, you know, last on this list, but certainly not least, and perhaps there's a case to be made that this might be one of the most important topics of our plan, and that is economic development. And as I said, yesterday I met with the Department of Commerce, and we were talking about the growth of tourism across North Carolina and the positive benefits that we see from investments in walking and bicycling facilities, the tremendous return that we have on that investment, and the ways in which we can continue to promote walking and bicycling as a form of economic development. So that is something that we're spending a lot of time on, and we hope to come up with really state-of-the-art, state-of-the-practice recommendations out of this planning effort. So it's a lot. As you can see, there's a lot of plan components. It's a big task of work. We have a very large team, and we're going to be working very hard over the coming months to develop a framework plan by November. I think, you know, at the end of the day, what a lot of people get concerned about with planning efforts is how well are we going to be able to implement the recommendations of this plan. So we have been certainly challenged by NCDOT to focus on implementation, to come up with realistic objectives and steps of action that will be taken. We know we're in the cycle of an election year, and so we want this to have great survivability no matter who the next administration is going to be, who the next governor is going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're looking very seriously at this in ways in which you know, this will carry over and have a great application to North Carolinians all across our state. We're going to be looking at operations and management. How is this managed over time? And very importantly, how a program like this will be funded and who will be involved in the funding of it. Now, finally, our deliverables are going to be done in both a digital format and a printed format. And we want this plan to be modern in every sense of the word. So we're showing you that the plan is going to be formatted in such a way that no matter what your digital device is, you'll be able to access this plan and this program and be connected into this in a digital environment from here forward. But we'll also be distributing printed forms of the final products in various types of stages, whether that be a executive summary brochure by the thousands, or a certain summary of the plan document by the hundreds. That, you know, it's our goal to really make this available to people all across the state in a variety of different formats. And I think as we move forward and we consider what our immediate next steps are going to be, we're going to be focused on our public outreach efforts. We've already begun setting up a number of different focus group meetings with targeted audiences across the state. We're also looking at conducting our public outreach meetings. As I said, we're gearing up, already in the process of developing the foundation for a draft plan, and we're going to continue to have our meetings with our steering committee and our advisory committee over the next 90 days. But we want to encourage you to remain involved with this effort. We want you to log on to walkbikeNC.com to look at where we're going to be attending public events, where we'll be holding focus group meetings, or just use that website to provide us input as this process continues along the timeline. And feel free to be engaged with us at any opportunity that you can. I just want to reiterate that the 5 primary pillars or foundations of this plan are focused on safety, health, economics, transportation efficiency, and stewardship. So as you think about those 5 principal elements of the plan, we have a couple of questions that we'd like to pose to you for your input today. And I think the best way for us to get your input is for you to use the GoToMeeting website that you're on right now and type in some questions for us to answer. We are putting up a draft vision statement. This is just a draft at this time that sort of encapsulates a lot of what we've talked about today in this presentation. We'll continue to take input and suggestions about that vision statement as we go forward. So consider that to be a placeholder at this time. But we have two basic questions, and we'll also take any other questions that you have for us as you listen to this presentation this morning. But the first question is, what is your vision for walking and bicycling in North Carolina, principally for the next 30 years? And then what are the steps necessary in the next 5 to 10 years to achieve your vision? So if you don't mind, just take a few moments and type your responses or any other questions that you have into the GoToMeeting portal. And we're going to take the opportunity now to see what questions are coming up, and we'll start responding to those questions. Okay, so the first question that we're seeing here is, how will the program coordinate with the work and planning being done by current regional bike plans being funded by NCDOT and through the local Council of Governments? I will start by answering the question, and I'll encourage Lauren to jump in, or Kumar, or anyone else. But I know that we are looking at all of those plans. I'm going to say there are around 115 to 120 that have been completed.
Well, this is specific to regional bike plans. We've completed 1.
Okay.
And there are about a half dozen others in the pipeline currently.
Okay.
So they are very large regional plans, so we do need to coordinate efforts with them to make sure that we're looking at that, especially within the context of our statewide bike routes.
Right.
The municipal plans, I think, is where you were.
Right. The municipal plans also, just to let you know, we're coordinating those as well. So we know what all those plans are. Some of them are quite old. So they're getting onwards about 10 years old, and so they need to be updated. So I think one of the things that we'll do is have a recommendation within this plan for a process for updating some of the older adopted municipal plans. And as you just said, with the regional plans, we'll continue our coordination work, building on the ones that have been completed. I'll also mention that there are COG-generated greenway plans. And we are going to have a focus group meeting with Division of State Parks, where we're going to take about a day to look at all those regional greenway plans that have been developed, and we'll be looking at some of the the products that have come from that planning effort and ways in which that gets folded into this effort as well. Okay, question number 2. Okay, how are you going to incorporate existing plans with MPOs and RPOs? Okay, so pretty much the same answer. Matt, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think a very similar answer. I think engaging the MPOs and RPOs is going to be a very key part of this effort. We are going to be establishing focus group meetings here very shortly with a focus on transportation efficiency, and really incorporating what you guys have been doing at the MPO and RPO level. We'll be inviting all of you all to participate in that focus group meeting. So keep your eyes open for that. We'll be reaching out to you with that meeting schedule. There will also be updates on waltbikeandsee.com, but we think that having strong involvement from the MPOs and RPOs is essential to this, and we'll be certainly looking to have that focus group meeting opportunity for you to reach out. We'll also have 3 regional public workshops that are getting established right now as well across the state. I think that'll be a good opportunity for the MPO and RPOs for those regions to participate in that and help us to get public involvement increased as much as possible. So there'll be a number of opportunities, and we'll be reaching out to you very shortly.
Okay, next question is, while the position is new, would you consider inviting the Safe Routes to School National Partnership representative in the planning process? We just happen to have Ed Johnson sitting here with the Bike Ped Division, and I'm going to ask Ed to address that, if he wouldn't mind.
Certainly involve as many players as we can with providing as much input as we can. So I think having Terry and having myself and the National Center as much input towards this is welcome.
Okay, and thank you for the compliment on the website. We're very pleased with the way that's all unfolded.
One thing to say about the website too, continue to visit it. It's going to be a living, breathing, dynamic website. There'll be new updates. There'll be new questions posed to the public. So that's the thing we want. It's not going to be a stagnant website at all. Every week or two, you'll see new updates, new information about upcoming meetings. So make sure you bookmark it and visit it very often.
Okay, next question is, in looking at plan components and overall approach, how will special and different requirements of the rural parts of North Carolina be incorporated? One size does not fit all. We certainly agree with that. And that was, yesterday during one of our meetings with the Department of Commerce, that same issue came up. We are very sensitive to the fact that North Carolina, we're not going to treat it all as one. We definitely have some rural communities and rural areas that are going to be very different from our urban areas. And we're going to be addressing that in a number of different ways through the plan, whether that be policies that would apply to rural communities differently than urban communities, programs that can be done in these different scale and different types of communities, as well as facility design guidelines. I think one of the things that also is important about this is funding, and ways in which we can begin to diversify the funding stream and improve the funding stream. So there's more dollars available to support walking and bicycling programs throughout the state. So there's a lot of different ways. We certainly recognize this as an important aspect of doing this plan, and we appreciate that comment and that question. Okay, please give more information on the health impact assessment and its process. Okay, I'll do my best. And actually, Julie Hunkins was here. Julie. Okay, Lauren. Okay, we have 2 people here in the room, Julie Hunkins and Lauren Blackburn, who can help me out with this. But I'll sort of start this off and then get some input. But first of all, it's being led by Jackie McDougall over at University of North Carolina. Jackie McDonald, excuse me, getting those names mixed up. Jackie McDonald and Phil Boris with Active Living by Design. So they're leading the process. And they have a very well-defined procedure and process, which begins with assessment and evaluation, goes on to look at various policies and programs, and makes a set of recommendations for how we integrate and incorporate health and wellness into these kind of programs. So the process is that's the process that they're going to be operating. Now it does involve reaching out to the Department of Health and Human Services, working with Ruth Peterson and her staff, and reaching out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is a primary funder. So there are going to be opportunities for different groups to be involved. So they're going to be getting input throughout the state of North Carolina and looking at key statistics across our state. For example, we're looking at GIS data sets where we have really significant health issues, such as diabetes or high blood pressure or hypertension. And principally what we're looking at there is what is the ability of North Carolinians to access outdoor environments, where they live, where they work, where kids are going to school, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to look at that issue of access and how walking and bicycling programs and facilities improve access to outdoor resources. So, that gives you a little bit about the process and the methodology and what, we're driving toward. But I'm going to let Lauren and maybe Julie add to that as they see fit. So, Lauren?
I was just going to mention that to learn more about the process for conducting an HIA, it would probably be best to go to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to learn more about the 5 to 6 step process that they have outlined. That is a conventional process that is used, and we will be following that. The HIA that we'll be conducting as part of this process is called what is a rapid HIA. It will be created as we develop questions through the plan that could indicate which direction for a policy we would go. The purpose is to create objective information and decision-making tools so that we are evaluating health as part of many different decision-making points in the process. So that will come near the end of the draft planning process, but throughout the planning process, in addition to the HIA, the consultants on health will be creating recommendations for incorporating health in many different facets of the plan. So there will be multiple approaches to incorporating health as part of the plan.
And we'll have a chapter, an entire chapter devoted to it within the plan, as well as policies and programs and actions that need to be undertaken. And it's not just by NCDOT. It's going to be by public and private groups all across North Carolina. I think the other thing that Blue Cross Blue Shield has been interested in is any sort of actions or activities that can take place as a result of this planning process, during the planning process. So we're looking at places where, walking and bicycling is being done specifically to improve the health of various populations. So it's a very broad, coordinated effort across our state with a number of different partners. So, Julie?
Yes, the only thing I would like to emphasize or underscore is that it's not a standalone HIA. It's more of integrated in the overall process.
I'll take the next question. There have been a number of references to collecting data across the state, considering the limited time frame. How much will you leverage your nationwide partners to learn from data and best practices from outside North Carolina? And the answer is definitely yes. I think this whole planning process, we're going to be looking at best practices where possible, and then in turn trying to develop our own best practice from that. I think we all know that data, especially in GIS form, is in various form and accuracies and consistencies across the state. We know there's local planning that goes on, regional planning, statewide planning, and very inconsistent data standards, and that's one thing that we're really going to be focusing on, is trying to establish pedestrian and bicycle standards for data collection and inventory and database development. That way we can have some consistency. There are comprehensive transportation plans that go on at the regional level as well, and we have just a lot of information out there that in many ways is unusable to the next community over, maybe adjacent to it, because there's very inconsistent practices going on. So really, collecting data is going to be a big part of this. We have several partners that are helping with that, but we're going to be trying to establish some very consistent standards for the state moving forward to make it much more efficient and better for planning in the future.
Okay, we have some people beginning to submit vision statements, and this one's by Diana Kraft. My vision is to see that all areas of North Carolina will be connected enough to walk and bike to areas. Very good. Let's see. Question: where can we find the urban design bicycle design manual? Okay, so the NACTO guide.
Yeah,
Matt.
the website eludes me, but very simply do a Google search for NACTO, N-A-C-T-O, bicycle guide, and it's very much available and easy to download. It's a PDF that's online. So NACTO, N-A-C-T-O.
Next question is there a maintenance component? There is, and we're going to be writing a operations and management program, sort of like guidelines for this the statewide plan and program, and we'll be offering more or less some templates that can be used by local governments and other organizations in terms of addressing maintenance and management. I know that this reaches far and wide because we get questions about whether if bike lanes are put in, are they going to be properly maintained as a facility? Or if we get into off-road facilities, you know, what's the operations and management of that? To, you know, things like programs. So we're going to be addressing operations and management as a programmatic element of this plan, and we'll have some very state-of-the-practice recommendations in there. Okay, question. How do you plan on getting the GIS data you mentioned from us?
Hey, John, this is Matt again. That's a very good question. We're working through that and noodling through that right now. We know that NC State and UNC, to some degree, have started looking at data sets from across the state to understand what some of the issues are and some of the inconsistencies are. We'll be reaching out to you in a meaningful, organized way in the future, but I think in large degree we're going to be trying to really think through what is the best way to do that. And I think the long-term vision of, yeah, maybe I should let Lauren take it from here, but I think a long-term vision or a consideration is how do we want to house this data, you know, from across the state, from not just the state and regional level, but a local level, and can we get this into a consistent database? We're really going to be thinking through the how part, and then, you know, and then the next steps of getting that data and working with you will be happening down the road. So hang tight, and we'll be in touch soon on all of that.
I was just saying, I'm sure a beginning of that conversation will be through our MPOs and RPOs.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Diana has added to her vision statement, item number 2 for her is to work with NCDOT and local governments. Okay, we have another question. What is the time horizon for the plan? Is it 10 years? Is it 30 years? The time horizon is 30 years, but we want to break that down into some manageable chunks. We're looking at actions that take place in the next 5 to 10 years. So it might be essentially a short term, a mid-term, and a long term, but the time horizon is 30 years. Okay, so Terry has submitted providing continuous linear facilities for all North Carolina roads and to begin with schools and transit. So thank you very much for that. And Scott has submitted in 30 to 40 years, North Carolina will have walking and bicycling networks equal to the roadway network.
I like that, Scott.
Thank you very much. Robert Reed has submitted, has there been some thought to involve the North Carolina Recreation and Park Association, who currently works with almost every park and recreation department in the state? Some excellent suggestions, Robert, and we are reaching out through the State Division of Parks, and we will include the other organizations in that discussion. So we're working with Darryl McBain and State Parks to conduct our focus groups and to include as many different types of park and recreation providers within that focus group meeting. So Robert, we'll circle back with Darryl and make sure that those people are getting those invitations. Okay, we have another vision statement from Thomas. My vision 1, in 40 years, 10% of North Carolina commuters in metro areas will commute by bicycle. That's an excellent, excellent goal, 10%. And then Barry says the vision is to be more like Oregon, or Boulder, or Davis, or the Netherlands. Reduce car dependence.
All right.
Okay, we like that. Next steps are to obligate existing safe route school funding and to integrate bike ped into transit and air quality plans to capture all 21 TA funds. Does anybody want to respond to MAP 21? Okay, we'll keep going. All right. How will the plan deal with creating communities where bicycling and walking are viable options? How will the plan deal with creating communities where biking and walking are viable options? Okay, so land use is a very difficult, challenging subject for us to deal with, but we are going to be taking that on in the planning process, and we will be making recommendations for policies and programs that can be undertaken at the local level to encourage community development that is more walk and bike friendly. So that will be part of what we do in the plan. So, anybody else want to take that on? Okay. Let's see. Number 2, incorporate biking and walking in NCDOT's CTP, SPOT, LRTP, TIP, and all other planning programs and processes. Yes, we will be addressing that as we go through this. Thank you very much. Scott, Vision 2, in 40 years or earlier, NC will be recognized nationally as a bike tourism mecca. We like that. So that's a good one.
Thomas, that's a good point, too, and especially in considering the amount of regional bicycle planning that is happening around the state now. A lot of that is happening in big regions and even rural regions that connect really beautiful parts of the state. And we have some similar goals at the regional level to really promote that at North Carolina as a world-wide bike destination and become known as that. So I think that's a great vision.
Okay, steps, a healthy, dedicated source of funding. We'd like to get there. So that's one of the things on our list. Jeff Sovich, how will this plan be integrated into the statewide 2040 transportation plan and into project-level planning, especially for projects that are already in the pipeline? That is one of the goals. This is the first plan that's being undertaken by NCDOT with the new mission statement. We definitely have the 2040 plan is something that we are looking at and looking at ways in which we can integrate the two plans together, especially when it comes to recommendations as it applies to policy, project implementation, funding, et cetera. So that's one of the first things that we're taking on with our evaluation analysis work. Incorporate NCDOT's complete streets guidelines into this plan. We are definitely doing that. We're going to be building upon the work that the complete streets guidelines have already achieved. So that will be our next building block. Why is there such an aggressive schedule? It's just the time we live in. We want to get a really great framework in place as soon as possible. So it is what it is, and that's the best answer I can get. Let's see, update policies and manuals to reflect the new Complete Streets guidelines. We'll definitely be doing that, Scott. Thank you very much. Statewide network of safe and attractive accommodations for bicyclists and pedestrians in both urban and rural areas that connect attractions, schools, residences, and other points of interest. This is coming from Neil Burke. Number 2, the adoption of this plan by all required stakeholders will set up a framework and performance measure to achieve the vision for safe and attractive bicycle and pedestrian transportation throughout the state. Thank you very much for those contributions. That is fantastic. Okay, how will NCDOT ensure that the implementation of this plan happens in a uniform manner across all NCDOT units and across all highway divisions? Currently, there is a great degree of inconsistency from one highway division to another with respect to how bike and ped policies and planning are incorporated into planning, design, and construction, et cetera. Okay, we definitely recognize that. That's one of the first things that, Jeff, we're taking on with our policy evaluation and analysis. This is one of the things that I spent some time here with the Bike Ped Division looking at all those policy pieces that govern how biking and walking gets implemented across the state. We do recognize that we don't have consistency. So that's one of the goals for plan, is to address that issue and come up with recommendations for how we resolve that and move forward with a unified program. So thank you very much. That's an excellent point that you raised.
Let me just add to that. Separate from this initiative, we'll be beginning an extensive training program for implementing Complete Streets policy and design guidelines.
And the time frame for that?
We're beginning this fall, and it will be throughout 2013.
Okay. So can these folks get connected with that? Okay. So, and where do they go to find information about that training?
we'll begin to provide information about that calendar of events very soon.
Okay, great. Okay, question. What is the nature of the GIS work beyond having a nice database? How do you envision the GIS being used? Who will be leading the GIS work? Matt, you want to address that?
Yeah, well, a nice database would be awfully nice to begin with. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I think that's very important. Being a consultant working with communities around the state, we know that communities are strapped to be able to take on a lot of the GIS work on their end. A lot of times you as local planners are having to wear many hats, including somehow manage a GIS database. And we know that GIS data is inconsistent across the state in large part because it's tough to manage all of that. So if we could get to a nice database, that would be incredible. I mean, I think what we have to move forward to is understanding that it's a tool that needs to be consistently used so that we can really understand where are the gaps in pedestrian and bicycle facilities, what are the actual bike and ped facilities that are out there. I think there's some misunderstanding and what is a bicycle lane or what is a bicycle path and the nomenclature for that inside of GIS databases. So just being able to use what would be a database that we can be, assured is consistent and accurate and updated is a big vision and something that we really want to have happen at the local and the state level, and it's really going to be used for advanced planning and being able to identify projects or spot prioritization moving forward.
So we're starting that effort. The question is, within our time frame, will we finish it? I think we're going to try to get a really good solid start on that, and that will be something that lives on beyond the time frame.
That's right. It's going to be an ongoing effort.
Okay, so Greg asked, do you have a plan to ensure that information on state planning efforts moves to the MPO, RPO organizations, the county, and local governments? So I'll start with Lauren.
It's the domain of the MPOs, RPOs.
Okay, so it's the domain of MPOs and RPOs?
I think there's two important facets to that. One is, as we're hurriedly working towards creating a draft plan by the end of this year, we'll be spending most of next spring shopping the plan around to MPO and RPO partners to get their input on the draft. So we will most definitely be coming back to all of our partner organizations across the state with the draft planning outcomes. Similar to that, I think as someone alluded earlier to MAP 21, the MAP 21 policy has a very strong directive that MPOs and RPOs are going to have a significant role to play in implementing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. So we'll have to continue building that relationship.
Okay, so Bjorn says, what is necessary over the next 5 to 10 years? An honest discussion about the limits of available funding through NCDOT and the MPO, RPO, CMAQ funds. Not so much a question as an observation. So yeah, we recognize that the traditional transportation funding streams might be viewed as being limited today because we have a 2-year bill, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're going to be looking beyond that. We're going to be looking at all types of funding, including private sector funding that can be brought to bear on this project, so in this program, not just traditional transportation funding. And that's maybe a major departure for a plan like this. Claudia, how are you going to recommend incorporating facilities on state-maintained roads? Well, we're going to have a set of guidelines that builds on the Complete Streets program and philosophy and also looks specifically at NCTOT's state-maintained roads and ways in which we can build successful walking and biking facilities in that environment. So that will be part of our design guidelines. Is that good enough? Okay. Let's see, is looking at funding, is it too early to account for the proposed new MAP 21 funding allocations? No, it is not too early. And in fact, we've already completed a digest of MAP 21. We're going to be incorporating that into the plan. We're going to be looking at how that affects funding here in North Carolina to the NCTOT. But it's not too early, and we'll definitely be incorporating those recommendations. Okay. Similar to rural issues, how will this address urbanized but unincorporated areas where DOT and counties don't have mechanisms to address those needs? Don Kostelak. Okay. Lauren, do you want to wrestle with that one? Similar to the rural issues, how will this address urbanized and unincorporated areas where DOT and counties don't have mechanisms to address those needs?
I think what he's getting at is there's not just one or two dichotomies in North Carolina. We have many different contexts where we have a plan.
That's right.
Suburban, exurban, and sort of these growing rural-ish areas.
Yes.
We have to, and beyond that, where there's specific economic considerations such as military bases, industrial development, tourism, et cetera. We have to look at lots of dimensions to that context. So we'll need to learn more about what people's concerns are as we solve that.
And Don, just as a case in point, we did deal with this with Guilford County when we did the Guilford County Bike, Ped, and Greenway Plan that basically Alta Greenways and Tool design were the consultants on. We dealt with some of this sort of gray area, unincorporated areas that are, sort of who's minding the store in these particular areas. And so part of those recommendations are taken on by the counties or the municipalities. Some of those are taken on by the DOTs or the MPOs. I think it's a matter of looking, as Lauren just said, looking at all of these landscapes and figuring out who's going to take on those responsibilities as we go forward with implementation. So, very good point.
Chuck, I'll give you a quick break. Then it says, my vision for the walking, biking future involves connecting greenways, bike paths, and bike lanes in urbanized areas to bike routes in rural areas. I think that's a great vision, and in our bike route analysis that we are currently getting underway, that's the vision that we do have, is to have those meaningful connections that get you from state bike routes into urban areas. Then it also said past tendencies of development sprawl were counter to such a vision. We completely agree. And could you speak directly to the need to involve local planning agencies, MPOs and RPOs, and land planning that minimizes sprawl? And yes, land use and transportation, you can't have a conversation about one without the other, and it's a very significant issue here, I think outlined very well from the beginning by the Division of Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation, the importance of discussing land use and having those conversations with the local communities, MPOs and RPOs, and I think that's a mission that we have during this process and something that we want to talk about with you more at those focus group meetings to understand how can we really try to address the negative impacts of urban sprawl. We know to create walkable and bikeable spaces there has to be reasonable distances for the average person to make a trip to the store, to school, and we know that land use and sprawl are key detriments to that. So that's something that we has the high priority to look at in this process.
Okay, Claudia asks, are hospitals going to be encouraged to get involved in this process? The answer is yes, and we are already reaching out to at least one hospital down in the Greenville area, trying to make connections with them and get them to be an active participant in the project. But we will continue to do other outreach efforts as we go through that. That's an excellent suggestion. We'll be working with our team that's working on the Rapid HIA to figure out just exactly how they'll be involved. Are you collaborating with the Mountain Sea Trail Plan, which eventually runs to the state? We are. We are doing that through Darryl McBain and the Division of State Parks. Vision goal, novice riders feel safe in riding their bikes out of the immediate neighborhood to go to school, to the store, to the library, to visit friends. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, my vision is to have connected facilities so anyone of any ability will be able to walk or bike where they want to go. Claudia, thank you very much. Vision, walking and bicycling become primary forms of transportation for people in North Carolina who currently feel it is impossible for them, particularly youth, people with disabilities, and older adults. Jennifer, thank you. For the next 5 to 10 years, allow implementation and expedite guidelines of those currently acknowledged policies and designs to allow immediate implementation in currently planned projects. Thank you very much, Ted. My vision is to reduce car dependence and to create a pro-bike mentality all over the state, including non-metropolitan areas. Nick, thank you. Peggy, will bike and ped education recommendations be a component of the plan? Yes, a very big component, Peggy. I mentioned during the presentation that our program component was very important to us, and we are going to have We'll be looking at the state of the practice when it comes to this, Peggy, and ways in which we can involve that, include that. Any recommendations that anybody has that's on the webinar today that you'd like for us to consider, feel free to send to us through the Walk Bike NC portal. But we are looking forward to incorporating the best programs that are out there.
Yeah, Peggy, we are currently underway and looking at best practices across the country, and we know that you have been doing a lot of that as well in Greensboro. You guys are the superstars in the state for all the different successful programs that you have had. So I think that's, again, another opportunity that we will have going forward to get your input when we come to you all in our focus group meetings about what's been working well in Greensboro, what can work well across the rest of the state. So we look forward to working with you on that.
Okay, Aaron Daniels, thank you. That's a very lengthy vision statement. We've got that logged in. Thank you very much. Terry, will the plan have teeth with MPOs and RPOs? Again, I'll just go back. That's sort of the MPO RPO domain. We hope that our recommendations are relevant enough where they get adopted, they get incorporated into the way the MPOs and RPOs do their business. I think one of the big things is we're talking about changing the culture, talking about changing the way we do business in North Carolina when it comes to walking and bicycling. So we hope that everyone will join that and be a part of the way that gets implemented. How often will the plan be updated and revisited? Our recommendation to NCDOT would be in 5-year intervals so that they go through a revision and review, or review and revision, every 5 years. So we will make that a part of the plan recommendations. That will be embedded in the plan. At present, NCDOT does not build sidewalks in areas outside of municipalities. How do you propose to make connections possible with this policy? I'm going to turn that over to Lauren or anyone else that wants to take that on.
I think we have to look at a variety of options for connecting rural areas and outlying areas to urban areas and municipal limits beyond just sidewalks. So we'll have to look at those connections. But she's right. It is a challenge that we're facing to try to make those connections.
Okay, Don, and you're bringing up an example, unincorporated sidewalks that has decent case studies to make it seem less foreign. There's a good example in Jackson County, agreed to maintain sidewalks in Cullowhee near Western Carolina University. That's a great example. Any kind of examples like that you guys would like to submit to us through the Walk Bike NC portal, we'd love to have those specific examples. So, Mary, do we have any other questions? That's it? Well, listen, thank you guys. Thanks, everybody. I know we had quite a bit of folks in attendance today. We appreciate your attending today's webinar. Please stay in touch with us. As Matt said to you, please visit the walkbikenc.com website on a regular basis to get updated on all the events and the programs and activities that are going on. It is a compact time frame. There's a lot going to be going on over the next 90 days. So make it a point to check in regularly. And also, we look forward to seeing you at events or workshops that we'll be hosting around the state in the coming months.
And to add to that, even more importantly, is not just for you to visit the website, but please pass it on to all of your constituents and all of your email lists that you have and you use on a regular basis. People that you know, whether it's your neighbors, people you go to church with or jog with, whoever, please pass the word on to get them to participate in this interactive website. And I should say that we've also recorded this webinar, so other folks who have not been able to participate will be able to access this on the website, walkbikenc.com, so they can also hear the message that went out today. So we'll look for that shortly. It'll be up on the website shortly. So thank you all very much.
And Lauren, do you have any final thoughts?
Thank you all for joining, and you will definitely be hearing from us soon.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good day.